On New Year's Eve, we went up along the Park City ridgeline on peak 10420 and took a look at a slide that was triggered on Sunday by snowmobilers from the ridge up above. They collapsed it from the ridge and it propagated downhill and broke out this avalanche about 4 feet deep, about 200 feet wide. The slope just to the left of it as you're looking uphill had already slid earlier in the storm. The one on the right had not, but afterwards snowmobilers did track up both those slopes, did not trigger anything more. The one on the right is not quite steep enough to slide. Then I stayed up at my friend's cabin at Guardsman Road, and New Year's morning we did beacon practice, of course, and we do this fairly regularly. Some folks were trying out their new Christmas presents, so it was, like us, we're just getting more practice with our beacon. You just home it in as close as you can with your beacon. You get pretty close where you think it is, and probe. We bury beacons in a pack to make it as realistic as possible so that you do have to probe for them. And you can feel them pretty easily with a probe. You know when you hit it. There, Billy just hit the pack. And then you leave the probe in place so you know where it is. Get on the downhill side and make like a flock of geese and dig in a V so you don't stand on top of the victim. You move snow out the middle, and you can move snow pretty quickly if you move it sideways instead of trying to lift it straight up. Anyway, beacon practice is a good thing. We do it pretty regularly. Then we took off and went up along the Park City ridgeline in very lovely conditions. I wanted to take a look at some of the north-facing slopes and see if they're gaining strength, and sure enough they are gaining strength. Here I'm doing an extended column test with a cord. I put my ski pole in place so it goes around the cord, and then I can cut this very quickly down below the weak layer, and it's 30 centimeters by 1 meter. Once you've cut it, then you put your shovel on one side of it and start tapping harder and harder until you can make it fail. If it is still propagating, then in theory you can trigger an avalanche on that slope. In this case, I do have to wallop on it a little bit harder than I used to. It used to be I just couldn't isolate columns at all on that weak layer. Very hard slab up above just a very weak sugary layer, and this is the problem layer that people have been triggering avalanches on. It is gaining strength though, which is good. So I had to wallop that pretty hard to get that to go. And you never know, you have to do a lot of these tests because we might be on a snowmobile track or a ski track, or because they're propagating a little bit easier over there. I mean, it is propagating, it's going all the way across. When people are not triggering avalanches, you wallop on this thing and it doesn't do anything. It might mush down, but it doesn't fracture across. So this is kind of one of those tricky situations where the whole slab is so stiff and hard.
Yeah, it has structural strength.
Underneath it, you just got nothing but a house of cards. So it's difficult to trigger this because it's so deep and it's so stiff above it. But if you trigger it in a shallow area, then it can propagate into here. Plus, this is only a 15-degree slope, and once we tip it up to 35 degrees, then these are easier to trigger. But this weak layer shows that it's still propagating fractures. You can still get avalanches on this layer. But you probably can't trigger it from these deeper spots unless you get your snowmobile stuck or fall hard. But then the shallower spots by the ridge, you collapse it there and then woof, propagates into here and the whole thing goes. And here's the snow profile that I had that day. You can see more of these on our website, utahavalanchecenter.org, and click on Profiles.